What's up, y'all? You're watching UnionMinded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to talk about transgender rights. A big story happened today in Virginia. There was a large student protest because of a policy proposal that the governor is deciding to put in place that would require the school to essentially out children who identify as transgender or non-binary to their parents, rather than to call them by their preferred pronouns and names. Now, before I get into it too deep, I do want to ask you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, drop some comments, and share these videos. I ask every time because I do mean that it is important. We do want to grow the channel and spread the sphere of influence. So please keep up that action and keep that work going. Now, let's dive into it. I'll also give you some little bonus story at the end that I think is pretty jacked up, but something that we need to remember how folks view their employees. So here we go. WTOP. This is according to WTOP. VA students walk out in protest of Youngkin transgender policies. On Tuesday, some students around Northern Virginia staged walkouts as a protest against Governor Glenn Youngkin's policy changes that impact LGBTQ students. Dozens of schools participated in the walkout, including campuses in Fairfax, Prince William, Loudoun, Arlington, and Stafford counties. A student-led group based in Virginia, the Pride Liberation Project, organized the walkouts. Youngkin's proposed policies would rewrite the playbook on how schools handle transgender students' rights. The 2022 model policies defined the word sex as biological sex, and the phrase transgender students means a public school student whose parent has requested in writing, due to their child's persistent and sincere belief that his or her gender differs with his or her sex, that their child be so identified while at school. You see what they did there? They forced it to be that the parent is putting in the request for the student to be called by their preferred pronouns while at school, or referred to be identified by their preferred identity while at school, which I hate that language, because it's not your preferred identity. It's just who you are. We got to get away from this binary thinking. Hardly anything in life is black and white. There's always a shade of gray. There are always exceptions to rules. There are always outliers. And so rather than be exclusive, we should always be inclusive. And why do I even talk about transgender rights? Why am I even bringing this up on a union-minded channel, right? We are inclusive. We accept all working people, regardless of race, color, nationality, creed, gender, sex, any kind of preferences like that. We accept all workers. Why? Because we are fighting on towards a common goal. And we need everybody in the fight. And that includes our siblings who identify as transgender or non-binary. You know, forever, we've had coworkers, brothers and sisters and siblings that worked alongside us that couldn't even identify themselves if they were non-binary, because that idea didn't even exist. And so while they walked around, you know, born a female, but never really feeling like a woman, but all they had to do was say, you know, the only language that existed was you're either gay or you're straight. And so this language didn't even exist. As human beings and as society, we evolve, and we gotta adapt with the changing environment around us. We can't be so rigid, because as you know, rigidity takes away from flexibility and actually increases weakness, because you can't bend. So instead of bending under pressure, you break. If you ever been around a foreman who can't handle pressure, you know what a broken beam looks like. When pressure hits that foreman and they start to run around like a chicken with their head cut off because they can't grasp what's going on, that's someone who can't handle pressure. They're too rigid. They don't flex. So we got to be better than that as a labor movement, and that's why this is important. On top of that, many of our brothers and sisters working in the trade got children who are non-binary or trans, and we have to support them. We can't be exclusionary. Everybody wasn't born and placed into a box that they fit so perfectly into. So keep that in mind as you hear this story, because it is important. We got to be inclusive in all things. We can't sit here and be exclusive. That was how the labor movement didn't win, when they were exclusive and all they wanted were Protestant white males back in the 1800s. That's when they weren't winning. They didn't start winning until they teamed up with the Knights of Labor, who had a different idea and said, no, we should include everybody into our labor unions. And when they partnered up, that's when we got the big wins, not when we were exclusive. So get that thought out of your head and change your heart. You gotta look inside, change your heart. Okay? Let's continue. The changes mean schools have to ask parents about students' names, nicknames, and pronouns that school staff should use. It also means the school defers to parents on whether a student can get counseling or express a different gender at school. In contrast, the 2021 model policies say school districts should call students by their preferred gender pronouns and identities without asking the parents. The Youngkin administration's changes would also require students to use bathrooms that correspond to their biological sex, except to the extent that federal law otherwise requires. Some critics say Youngkin's policies... Hold on, my phone updated, so now I'm going back. All right, here we go. Some critics say Youngkin's policies would roll back transgender rights and force schools to out students to their parents. Supporters argue the policy changes fulfill Youngkin's campaign to promise to support parental rights. Here's the thing, though. Some parents are rigid and unbending, and that can cause more harm to a student than good. Do you know how high suicide rates are for the LGBTQ plus community? They're pretty high. And why is that, do you think? Is it because we have an inclusive, loving atmosphere at home and in school and in our society? Here's a hint. It's not. So we have to protect these fragile children and give them that safe space that they need. And I know we mock that idea. Oh, you need a safe space. You're not tough enough. But that's machismo. That's nonsense. You do need a safe space. You do need a place that you can go to where you feel safe. People need that. A lot of us, it's our home. We call it our castle. But what happens when your home is actually a dungeon? Is that your castle? Is it safe? Is it safe for you there? You see what I'm saying? So again, we gotta get out of this mindset where it's our way or the highway, and there's no wiggle room for the outliers, and we got to be exclusionary. It's this way or it's no way. No, that's not the way to move forward as a society. Protesters called for the Virginia Department of Education to revoke the revisions and preserve the existing policies. They also want local school boards to reject the policies. But Youngkin has defended the policies, saying the previous policies excluded parents and that school boards have to comply with the new guidelines. It's the law. Youngkin said last week, I don't really have a lot of patience for folks who see a law and don't comply with it. That's rich. The protests were timed to coincide with the start of the 30-day public comment period. Hold on, I'm gonna go back to that because I just had a thought. That's rich. He's sitting here saying it's the law. Youngkin last week, I don't really have a lot of patience for folks who see a law and don't comply with it. Hey dude, I hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but you're a MAGA Republican, Youngkin. All that law and order talk, where was all your outrage at January 6th? Where's your outrage at Trump being out there with stolen documents that he had to return? Don't play this nonsense about law and order. They only use that as a tactic, again, to divide and to kind of signal to folks that think like them that this is, we're upstanding, we're the good folks. No, you're not. Look what you're trying to do. You're trying to hurt children. You're not the good folks. Stop it. Already more than 1,800 comments 18,000 comments have been posted on the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall's website. They're saying with a mix of support and criticism of the changes. At Loudoun County High School in Leesburg, approximately 60 students walked out the front door at 10:45 a.m. and gathered in front of the school. Demonstration was organized by a 15-year-old. I'm not going to give their name. The primary concern is for those who are closeted and do not feel safe going and telling their parents that they are a part of the LGBTQ community. They also said that this person prefers to use the pronouns they and them. Said students who are outed by teachers to the child's parents would be at risk. Many students have supporting parents and they can go home to supportive homes, but there's also students where school is their safe place. And if we take that away from them by taking away their privacy, that can really harm them. Youngkin's proposed changes have focused on parents having more control over gender issues. Again, there's room for a middle ground, but we haven't reached that point where we have enough understanding to be at a middle ground. So we have to err on the side of the innocent, which is the children. Parents, you want to talk about safe spaces? You need a safe space? What, you uncomfortable because your kid doesn't fit into that little box that you imagined in your head they were going to fit into? Really? Let's be grown-ups. Stop being silly. All right, that was the first story that I wanted to talk to you about. But the other thing I wanted to mention was, so there's a hurricane bearing down on Florida on the West Coast, and I just want to give you an insight of what a CEO of a company in Florida, how they view their workers. Okay, this is from a marketing firm. So it says, employees at marketing firm Postcard Mania in Clearwater, Florida, are not only being asked to work through the hurricane, but are being told to bring their kids and pets to stay at work overnight so as to continue to service our national clients. And it gets even better because this reporter then released the actual Zoom call statement that was recorded and printed and everything else of this CEO for this company. And let me see if I got the company's name for you. Postcard Mania. All right, so listen to this. You guys are you're gonna laugh. It's ridiculous on its face because CEOs, I mean, Tupac said it best, man. They don't give a fuck about us. Michael Jackson also said that. But listen to this and tell me if this isn't mind-blowing. Staff meeting September 26, 2022. And mind you, I grew up in South Florida, and so I know about hurricanes, and I know about how folks in Florida tend to look at hurricanes as if they're a joke. Okay? And I understand that. But we talk about workers here and a business. And now listen to this. Hi, guys. I'm going to do her voice because I'm just in my mind, I figured this is how this person sounds. Her name's Joy, and she says, "Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Say hi to Dan. We're driving. Here's the deal. I guess a hurricane is coming. I've lived in this area for 33 years now, and the media always makes it a lot worse than it ever has been. Obviously, we have to plan for a disaster and hope for a nothing burger, which every single time we plan for a disaster, it's always a nothing burger. So if it's super windy and you feel uncomfortable driving across the causeway, then we'll figure out how to get you to work from home. But I'm not afraid of this thing personally. If you're new to town and you're like, oh no, it's a hurricane, it's not going to be that bad, I promise. But there are evacuation areas. Even Zach's apartment is an evacuation apartment. And he's up a giant hill from the water. Nothing's going to happen over there. I live one down block from the water, but high up on a bluff. My house was built in 1925 and is still standing. So here's the thing. If you want to leave your home and you're being told to leave your home and you feel like you should and you would have no place to go, PCM is probably the safest place to be in Florida. Anyway, bring your pets, bring your kids, bring everybody to PCM, and Jason can start blowing up those air mattresses if we need to. Been there, done that. it's going to be fine. Obviously, you feeling safe and comfortable is of the utmost importance, but I honestly want to continue to deliver, and I want to have a good end of quarter. And when it turns into nothing, I don't want to be like, great, we all stopped producing because of the media and the maybe that it was going to be. Terrible. So let's see. I think it's maybe going to be bad on Wednesday afternoon. It's not going to be nearby until then. Let's just keep track of it, and we'll keep you informed. We keep looking every 5 minutes at the models to see what's going on. But I think it's going to be a nothing burger like usual. This CEO is telling their workers to come to work anyway. You could just stay here. We need to get these out so that we have a successful third quarter. You see what I'm saying? They don't care about you. So stop looking up to CEOs. When you look up at a CEO, remember, all you see is the bottom of their boot as they trample the working class. And you have to view it that way, because we're on the bottom and we're getting crushed. But there's more of us than there are of them. And we are the real rulers of this world. We're the real backbone. We're the real motor that drives everything. We hold all the power if only we see each other as family and hold that solidarity strong. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it informative. Remember, the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. And don't forget, it's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. Peace.